A changing climate is bringing extremes to the Horn of Africa, including unusually heavy rains and flooding. But at the same time, the region is drying up. CNN's Jomana Karadsheh traveled to Somaliland recently. She joins me now from Istanbul, Turkey. They are suffering under two really severe extremes there, Jomana.
They are, Natalie. You know, droughts are nothing new in the Horn of Africa, but what's been happening there over the past few years is that they have been suffering from more droughts that have been lasting for a longer time. They've become more frequent. And when it comes to the rainy seasons, they have become unpredictable. They have become shorter. The rainfall has been erratic. And when it does rain, it causes flooding, as we have seen over the past few weeks, where several people in the Horn of Africa have been killed by these devastating floods, and hundreds of thousands have been displaced. You know, Natalie, they say it is the world's poorest who suffer the most from climate shocks, and nowhere is that more evident than in that self-declared state of Somaliland, where we traveled recently and we saw the impact of the climate crisis firsthand.
Imagine learning to farm at 50. That's what Fatima's doing after losing all her goats and sheep to years of drought. These women are the survivors of extremes. They bear the brunt of climate shocks. Like other women in the developing world, they produce 80% of their food. But this village in Somaliland has fared better with this year's rains than most. Everyone feels climate shocks here, desperately searching for water the rains once brought. Historical climate data in the self-declared state that broke away from Somalia 3 decades ago is scant, but local officials measuring rainfall here say it's dropped by more than half in the past 50 years. The Horn of Africa is drying up faster than it ever has in the past 2,000 years, according to a study by American scientists.
Even in the best of times, this inhospitable land has made life difficult for its people. For many, the changing climate has now made it impossible.
More than 2/3 of the livestock died in the most recent killer drought, turning tens of thousands of pastoralists into climate refugees, living in makeshift camps for years, with no way out in sight. Mother of 7, Europe Suleiman lost her entire herd of 200 goats 2 years ago. I have never worried for the life of my children, how to feed them, how to look after them, she says. This was the worst drought I have ever seen.
We are touching it, it is there. Climate change is real. In Somaliland, it's real. And when you have an empty stomach, you don't have anything to put into your stomach or to put into your child's stomach, that's when you feel it.
One of the world's poorest and least developed economies is overwhelmed. You can see how harsh life can be in the streets of the capital, Hargeisa. Charcoal cellars line this one. Just about everybody depends on it for cooking, at the cost of cutting down and burning trees, transforming vanishing forests into deserts. Even solutions are defeated by the very problem they're meant to solve. This was supposed to be a star resilience project.
I left it so beautifully. When I came this morning, I almost died.
This greenhouse is an ingenious yet simple pilot design using desalinated seawater to grow food along Somaliland's arid coast. But 2 years out of 3, they've been beaten back by the climate crisis.
This is watermelon.
Rebuilding after last year's first ever cyclone, getting battered by unprecedented winds this year. There's no question who's responsible, says Musa.
The West. Those industrial countries who are really producing all these gases into the air. Are we producing anything? No. We are just getting the impact. They should help us and pay for this.
But the help just isn't there, says the Environment Minister.
Because you are not recognized by the international community. That means you are not visible, you are not there. Definitely you are not there. You are in another world.
Searching for an economic lifeline, their government's now looking toward the sea, courting investors for more projects like the Dubai-funded development of Berbera Port on the strategic Gulf of Aden. Officials tell us they're mulling over a bold idea to move much of the population to the coast. A generational undertaking that will be outpaced by the rapidly worsening climate.
And Natalie, the message from Somaliland, their government there, is clear. Climate change is not a problem of the future. It's not something that's threatening humanity in the distant future. It is real. It is happening now, and it is impacting the lives of millions. Right now, it is Somaliland, it is the Horn of Africa, but they say that this will happen elsewhere in the world unless there is real action that is taken right now, Natalie.